The original Legend of Zelda was a massive success on the NES both critically and financially. This would of course be followed up with Zelda 2, which, my personal feelings aside, would again do huge numbers upon its release, so of course Nintendo went full steam ahead on a third Zelda title. Development started on the original NES, but it wouldn't be long before the Zelda crew shifted over to the Super Famicom/Super Nintendo to make use of the new system's advantages over the old 8-bit machines, such as larger cartridge space, Mode 7 graphics for the map, and a soundtrack that sounded like a bit-crushed orchestra was playing the music to give the adventure a more grandiose vibe. In November of 1991 in Japan and April of 92 in America, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past would grace the SNES and be yet another financial success. As for its critical reception, it was touted as one of the best games ever made and is to this day seen as a masterpiece of game design, even when compared to later entries in the series. It's no secret to anybody nowadays just how amazing of a game A Link to the Past is, with it inspiring Nintendo's devs to later make a Game Boy Zelda game, that being Link's Awakening, and years later would see a direct sequel/reimagining on the 3DS in the form of A Link Between Worlds. That's not even mentioning that this one game would set in stone the formula Zelda games would follow for several decades until 2017's Breath of the Wild moved away from it. As for myself, I've only completed this game once before, and that was on the Wii U's Virtual Console port of the game, so it's been roughly 10 years since I last played this, and I do recall enjoying my time with it much more than the previous two games in the series, so I think my stance on this game shouldn't change too much, so let's delve into why A Link to the Past is a timeless masterpiece. So first things first, this game is a prequel to the NES games. Kind of weird, but if that sounds odd to you, then by God, just wait, the Zelda timeline gets very convoluted. Legends speak of a golden power that resides in the Golden Land, a separate realm from the Kingdom of Hyrule. Many have fought bloody battles to attain this power, with the King of Hyrule ordering 7 wise men, one of which looks like a dwarf or a hobbit. No, it can't be a hobbit. No one copies halflings. Anyway, the 7 wise men seal away the Golden Land once an evil power begins to emanate from it. Then one day, a dark wizard known as Aghanim appeared with a desire to break that seal, so he took the issue up with the current King of Hyrule, who he fucking annihilated! Jesus Christ, there isn't anything of the dude left! Aghanim tracked down the descendants of the wise men, including Princess Zelda, and began to use his magic on them to make them vanish into another world. Zelda, fearing the worst is about to unfold, telepathically communicates with the last descendant of the Knights of Hyrule that she is being held captive in the castle and needs to be rescued. This is of course our protagonist, Link, although this being a prequel of course means that this is a different Link from the first one, no, future one, well, you know what I mean. After giving a name to this incarnation of the hero, we awaken our uncle's house as he leaves for the castle in an attempt to rescue Zelda himself, and tells us not to go, which we of course disregard and take his lantern to accompany us. From here, we have to sneak into the castle where we find our uncle, who was beaten to near death, as he hands us his sword and shield and tells us that Zelda is my what? Zelda's my what? What is Zelda? In the next room, we have to fight some enemies, which allows us the chance to start getting acquainted with this Link's controls. Of course, we're back to the top-down style of Zelda 1, but this Link isn't limited to 4-directional movement, as he can move diagonally. Although, he doesn't turn to face diagonal directions, he just kinda shuffles from side to side. Perhaps the best addition to Link's movement is his sword. That being, he actually swings the thing now, as opposed to the first 2 games where he would just kind of thrust it forward like, huh, ha! This leads to Link having a much more effective damage range, which will always be appreciated. Link can also equip a secondary item which can be used with the Y button, although I wish we were able to equip more than just one item. The SNES controller has way more buttons than the original NES controller, and yet the L and R buttons go completely unused in this game. It would have been cool if we were able to assign items to those buttons as well, which would cut back on inventory management, especially come late game. Also, get this, with the press of the X button, we get an actual honest-to-God map with landmarks visible that actually give you a good idea of where to go and how to get there, and with important places such as dungeons being marked. It's not just some gray rectangle at the top of the screen, or Zelda 2, which... Wait a minute, Zelda 2 didn't even have a map at all! This is a real, well-made map that actually helps you! We also have a magic meter, which can be refilled by finding these green magic bottles dropped by enemies or by turning Link into a lawnmower. With magic built up, we can use certain magical items such as our lamp to light torches in dark areas. As we move in the Hyrule Castle, we have to fight our way through the castle guards, who are all under the evil influence of Hyrule Castle acts as our tutorial dungeon, as it introduces the concepts of dungeon maps, compasses, and the need for keys to move forward. Fortunately, this place is very forgiving. Enemies don't deal that much damage, and there are plenty of health refills that can be found by slaying either enemies or by breaking pottery. Not far into the castle's dungeon, we can find our first sub-weapon, the boomerang, which has a pretty limited range, but it can stun enemies for a bit and even push them back to create a bit of space between them and Link. The thing also no longer looks like a French pastry, so I consider that an honest downgrade. At the bottom of the dungeon, we have to face this mace-wielding knight who can be easily dispatched by chucking a few pots at his face, to which he drops the big key, which allows us to open the cell and rescue Princess Zelda. She thanks us for hearing her plea and instructs us to take her to the sanctuary via a hidden passage that connects the sewers of the castle to the sanctuary, so we begin our escort mission. Fortunately, Zelda can't take damage, so getting her to safety is simply a matter of us not dying. As we crawl our way through the sewers, you might also spot this cracked wall, which we want to keep in mind for later. Finally, after wading through the piss of the royal family, we emerge at the sanctuary and hand Princess Zelda off to the priest, whose name I do not know, so I shall dub him Father Styx. He marks on our map the house of a wise elder in Kakariko Village, so with that, we make haste. After making a brief detour to nab this shroom for dubious reasons, we arrive at Kakariko Village and immediately fall down the well to find a chest containing bombs, which is a terrifying thought since, why was someone disregarding explosives in the well? Either way, it's great for us as we can place a bomb to destroy this cracked wall and find a piece of heart. This is an interesting change. Instead of finding whole heart containers to permanently extend our health, we have to find 4 pieces of heart to form a full heart container, which I think is for the best as it allows the devs to make a ton of hiding places for these things, as well as require us to do mini games or other side quests to get them. Speaking of side quests, there is a ton of stuff we can do within Kakariko to nab more heart pieces and items to help us in our fight against Andy Sandberg. Perhaps the most important of which is the bug net, which we can use to catch fairies so that if we die, a fairy will automatically be released and bring us back to life, preventing a game over. We can also travel to the other side of Hyrule and give drugs to this witch, who in turn provides us with magic powder, that when sprinkled on certain enemies can do something to them. Back in Kakariko, we can continue the main story and talk with the wise elder's wife, who tells us that she has no fucking clue where her husband is, but informs us of the Master Sword and that her husband knows a great deal more about it than herself. Someone in the village must know where the elder is, and as it turns out, the elder's grandson is able to mark his location on the map for us, so off we go. Upon arriving in the easternmost part of the map, we find the Elder Sahasrahla, who informs us that in order to pull the Master Sword, we must first acquire 3 pendants from 3 dungeons across Hyrule, and it just so happens that we're literally right on top of the Eastern Palace, so he instructs us to get the Pendant of Courage from the palace to prove ourselves to him. The Eastern Palace, being our first real challenge, is pretty short and sweet, with it containing some simple puzzles and easy enemies to kill. We can find this large chest, but it can't be opened unless we have this dungeon's big key, so after a quick detour to get that, we can open the chest and obtain the bow, granting us a long-range attack option. Unlike Zelda 1, arrows don't cost 1 rupee, instead arrows are a separate consumable item, which good. At the end is our first boss, the 6 Armos Knights that will do a little jig around the arena. It almost makes me not want to mess with them, they're just having fun, but I got a world to save, so pelted with arrows they shall be. For beating them, we not only get a full heart container, but the Pendant of Courage. Sahasrahla tells us more about the Master Sword and how it was once used by the heroes of old before the 7 Wise Men's seal on the Golden Land. He then believes that we can get the 2 remaining pendants, marks them on our map, and provides us with the best piece of equipment in the game, the Pegasus Boots. Now, why are these best things in the game? You just go flying, and because Link has the idea to put his sword out in front of him, you become this unstoppable speed demon that just destroys everything in its path. You know the opening scene of the the hook scene for the boys? Yeah, that. Before the next palace, we have even more side quests we can do now that we have the bow and the Pegasus Boots, including more heart pieces, sealing this Book of Medora from the Kakariko Library, and even exposing this cracked wall next to this fairy fountain to obtain the Ice Rod, which we can use to freeze enemies in their place. In the southern desert, we can use that book we stole to translate the ancient writings on this tablet, which tells Link to make a wish and it will be granted. I desire... mommy milkers. Oh fuck, wait, it was asking Link specifically, fuck! This opens up the entrance to the second dungeon, the Desert Palace. So, do you like sand? Well, I hope you do, because this place is full of coarse and rough sand, and it gets everywhere. This dungeon will introduce several new enemies, as you might expect, one of which happens to be the Beamos. I hate these things. They can't be killed as far as I'm aware, and their eye will rotate around them, and when it spots you, a fucking laser beam will be blasted at your ass. Within this palace, we can find the Power Glove, which will let us lift up rocks and boulders, but only the lightly colored ones. The dark colored ones are too heavy for the Power Glove to pick up. Fucking piece of shit NES accessory. After going outside and nabbing a heart piece, we can take on the boss of the dungeon, land moles. These sandworm creatures will jump out of the sand, with Link needing to strike them at the right moment, which can be done with either the sword or the bow. After defeating all three of the worms, we get another heart container and the Pendant of Power. Next, we can head north to Zora's Waterfall and sneak our way through the place to purchase a pair of flippers from the Zora King, thus meaning we can swim! He even lets us use the magic waterways to warp to other parts of Hyrule. Right next to the entrance to Zora's Waterfall, we can find the hidden entrance to this mysterious pond, where we can toss in our boomerang and the shield, to which the Great Fairy of the pond will upgrade them to the magic boomerang and the fire shield. After that, we can head south to Lake Hylia and find the Pond of Happiness, which if we throw a total of 100 rupees into, will awaken this pond's Great Fairy, who will allow us to upgrade our max amount of bombs and arrows that we can carry, with them capping out at 50 bombs and 70 arrows. More than enough for the whole game, just be prepared to do a lot of this if you plan on going for it. We can also return to the sewers where we helped Zelda through and bomb that cracked wall we saw earlier. Hey Zelda. Bye Zelda.
That boy ain't right.
Finally, we can head for Death Mountain, where we need to navigate these dark-ass caves, only to find this lonely old man who asks us to guide him out, and for doing so, he gives us the magic mirror, which we can't do anything with right now. Anyway, Death Mountain is nowhere near as much of a difficulty spike as it was back in Zelda 2, but holy fuck, these boulders suck! At the top of the mountain, we can find this odd tile that when stepped on... Are we a bunny rabbit now? Why is that dinosaur kid kicking Kirby around? If we talk to the dinosaur kid, he informs us that the Moon Pearl in the Tower of Hera can retain your form within this world. If we stand over here in this nearby spot, we can use the magic mirror to return to Hyrule, where we can then enter the third dungeon, the Tower of Hera. This dungeon introduces us to the crystal switches, which will toggle these blue and orange blocks to be up or down. There are also a ton of enemies in here that are very bouncy and will knock Link back regardless if you hit them or they hit you. This can be a really huge pain in the ass, especially as you move to the upper levels of the tower, as those holes in the floor aren't just for show. You can be knocked down to the lower levels, which is a massive pain. We can also find the Moon Pearl here, as alluded to earlier, and if we intentionally fall into these giant pots, we can find a hidden fairy pond should we need to catch some. At the top of the tower is Moldorm, this large rubbery worm that will bounce you around, with us needing to avoid falling down into the lower floors of the tower, as that will restart the fight. But I was lucky enough to kill this thing without a hitch, so after grabbing the heart— No! No! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh! Oh! Oh no.
Oh, and I have to fight it again. Oh well, you've done it before. Surely you can pull that off a second time, right? See?
Alright, there! We grab the heart container for real this time and get the Pendant of Wisdom. With all three pendants in hand, we can travel deep into the Lost Woods, as far within is a pedestal that holds the very weapon we seek. The Master Sword, the Blade of Evil's Bane. The Master Sword not only deals more damage than our Uncle's Sword, but can also shoot out magical laser beams when we're at full health. However, soon after, Andy Samberg's forces sack the Sanctuary and kidnap Zelda, with the priest dying soon after.
changing the world. My final message. Goodbye.
We can then return to Death Mountain and get this Ether Medallion, allowing us to perform a strong electrical attack. From there, we can head directly to Hyrule Castle and climb as high as we can go, and when we reach the very peak, the evil wizard casts his spell, making Zelda vanish before our very eyes. Right after, we challenge Andy Samberg to a fight, but he can't be hurt with a physical weapon, so we need something to deflect his magic back at him. After Andy Samberg's defeat, he casts his evil spell on Link, sending us to the Dark World. This is what became of the Golden Land after it was sealed off, and is also where the 7 maidens were sent to. Sahasrara is able to use telepathy to inform us to head to this world's equivalent of the Eastern Palace, the Palace of Darkness. Traversing across the Dark World, it should become apparent very quickly that this is a twisted version of Hyrule with just how bleak everything feels and the fact that everything is out to kill you, and I mean that, these motherfuckers hit like trucks. Also, whenever I was here, I kept singing out loud Demon Tomato Dave's theme to the Dark World. Sorry, I couldn't help it. The theme to the Dark World, the theme to the Dark World, the theme to the Dark World. The theme to the Dark World. The theme to the Dark World. From the Dark World. It's a dark place that's menacing. The theme to the Dark World. And dark. The theme to the Dark World. The theme to the Dark World. We can obtain the Quake Medallion from this catfish, which allows us to cause one of the most violent acts of nature to kill some walking pigs before entering this hedge maze where we find this monkey who will follow us around if we give him 10 rupees, piece of shit, but we need him to open the next dungeon where he asks for 100 more rupees. Why, you little? The Dark Palace, I swear, was just 20 minutes of me running back and forth between the same few rooms, and after rewatching the footage while writing the script, yeah, it was. We do get a new item here, that being the magic hammer that, contrary to what its name might suggest, isn't actually magic, but it does allow us to cave in these fence posts, and whatever the hell these things are in the Dark World, the ground dildos? So the boss of this dungeon looks metal as fuck. It's called Helmassar King, and we need to break its mask to begin dealing damage to it, which I thought had to be done with the hammer, which was working, but then I remembered, oh right, bombs. Defeating him grants yet another heart container and this crystal, which frees the first of the 7 maidens, who speaks to Link about Andy Samberg's goals and that the corruption of the Golden Land was the doing of none other than Ganon. After that, we can explore a lot of the Dark World to better equip ourselves for the future, such as getting 6 additional heart pieces, which brings us to a total of 12 hearts, the shovel for digging, which lets us grab the flute, which when taken to the Weather Vane in Kakariko Village, awakens this bird inside who can take us to one of 8 points in Hyrule, and only in Hyrule, so we can't fast travel in the Dark World with this thing, which kinda sucks, but whatever. We can even find this mad batter fellow who will curse us in such a way that using a magical item will only consume half of the magic it normally would. Wait, curse? Next is the magic cape, which we can use to turn invisible for a bit, allowing us to cross over hazardous areas such as spiked floors. Then there's the cane of Brina that gives us a magical barrier to protect us from enemies. And finally is the Bombos medallion, which explodes the surrounding area when used. Oh, and one more thing. This digging minigame can fuck right off! So by draining the wetlands in Hyrule, it also drains the swamp in the Dark World, allowing us to access the Swamp Palace. I didn't like the Swamp Palace. These magical water bubble things, they move really fast and can blindside you, and then you have to swim a lot in this dungeon, go figure. But swimming means you can't attack while in the water. That and these crystal switches really screwed me over at one point, requiring me to backtrack. But you do get the hookshot from this dungeon, which allows you to cross gaps harmlessly, so you know what? All was forgiven, Swamp Palace. Argus awaits us at the end of the Swamp Palace, and you can't damage him until you use the hookshot to pluck all these little cotton ball guys off of him and destroy them, which pisses him off to the point where he slams down onto the ground and begins to slide around like an air hockey puck. The Ice Rod fortunately makes quick work of him, allowing us to obtain yet another heart container and the second crystal. After getting another heart piece, we can head straight for Skull Woods, which is a pretty unique dungeon in that there are multiple entrances, with only certain sections being accessible through specific entrances. It's a fun dungeon too, as the wall masters keep you on your toes the whole time. We can even find the Fire Rod here, which sends out a magical burst of fire. Mothula is this giant overgrown moth boss that will fly around, all the while the edges of the arena are covered in spike traps that on top of sliding around themselves, the floor beneath Link will begin to move around, which leads to a lot that needs to be kept track of. At least the fire rod burns the shit out of Mothula. With the boss defeated and another heart container gotten, we can nab the third crystal. Afterwards, we can just make a beeline for the next dungeon, located in this world's version of Kakariko Village. The Gargoyles domain is one hell of a maze that I kinda got lost in, to be completely honest, but once I found my way, progress came quickly. At some point, you might come across this window shining light down on this bombable floor, so bomb it and head down to find the maiden. However, if we bring her to the room below where that light was shining down from, it's revealed that this is in fact the dungeon boss, Blind. So this was absolutely the most annoying fight in the game. He'll look from side to side and occasionally fire out a laser beam, but once you kill him, his head starts to fly around shooting fireballs while another head grows, and the worst part is that defeating the second head will cause it to start flying around and it'll spawn a third head, leading to this fight being chaotic as all hell. Regardless, once he goes down, we can grab the fourth crystal and rescue the real maiden. Now that we have the dungeon item, we can lift these rocks to save... God damn it. Now with the Titan's Mitt, we can rescue this little fella and take him back to Hyrule, where it's revealed that he is actually one of the Dwarven swordsmiths, who then offer to temper our Master Sword, making it much stronger. From here, we can gather a few more heart pieces and accidentally open up the entrance to Dungeon 6, almost as if fate itself is telling me to head here first. If we head to the Pond of Happiness, we can warp to the Dark World where we find the Ice Palace, and if you don't like ice physics, well, get ready, because you're gonna be slipping and sliding all around this fucking place. Watch as Link can't even go down a flight of stairs, and your time here is going to be increased because of this annoying-ass block puzzle that requires backtracking through a massive portion of the dungeon, which sucks. We can at least get the blue mail here, which increases Link's defense. At the end is Cold Sear, which are these clouds frozen in ice that when thawed out becomes a rather easy boss fight, admittedly. The clouds just kinda move around while ice blocks rain down. Afterwards, we can grab the fifth crystal and get out of this frigid hellhole. From here, we can just head straight for Misery Mire, the sixth dungeon on our list, which brings back Wizzrobes, who aren't as annoying to deal with like they were in Zelda 1, and also no longer look like clan members like they did in Zelda 2. Seriously, what the fuck was that about? Misery Mire can be pretty labyrinthian-like at times, especially this group of dark rooms later on in the dungeon. We can find the Cane of Samaria here, which spawns these blocks that, if you come here first, can bypass that block puzzle in the Ice Palace I bitched about. So the boss here is this massive eyes called Vitrios. We just need to destroy the smaller eyes, all the while avoiding this electricity attack from the larger one. Once enough of the small fry have been slain, the large eye emerges, with us just needing to stab it a bunch until it dies. With the sixth crystal, this maiden informs us that Andy Samberg is merely a pawn of Ganon, and that it is fate that we must confront Ganon and save the world. By getting the super bomb from this guy who lives in our Dark World house, we can bomb this wall on the Great Pyramid to gain access to the Dark World's mysterious pond, and throw some items in to upgrade them courtesy of the cursed Great Fairy. This is how we can obtain the Golden Sword for even more damage output, and the Silver Arrows, which are once again required to defeat Ganon. At least you get told this pretty early on, and thanks to this game actually having a halfway decent translation for the time, you can actually understand what they mean when they tell you Silver Arrows make Ganon go bye-bye. By making our way up this world's Death Mountain, we can gain entry to Turtle Rock. The first part of this dungeon requires using the Cane of Samaria to make these platforms to ride on, and using them to traverse around. Also, this torch puzzle can eat a dick, preferably mine. Something that's cool is that at a certain point in the dungeon, we can warp back to Hyrule when in the outside part of the dungeon and get our final heart piece. We can also grab the Mirror Shield in this dungeon, which reflects magical beam attacks. The end boss of the dungeon is Trinix, which in case the fact that the heads are colored red and blue as well as them using fire and ice attacks respectively didn't tip you off, you have to use the ice and fire rods to beat the elemental heads. From here, this turns into a game of Snake, except you're the food. With Trinix gone, we max out our health and get the final crystal, rescuing Princess Zelda yet again. With all 7 maidens free, they break the magical seal protecting Ganon's tower as we head inside to confront Andy Samberg one final time. This being the final dungeon makes it one of the longer dungeons in the game, as it really likes to test your knowledge and combat skills, and even has you rematch the first 3 bosses from the palaces in Hyrule, though they go down really quick now that we have maxed out gear. At the top of the tower, we confront Andy Samberg, whose fight is pretty much the same as earlier, although it's made a little more difficult now that he has 2 shadow clones that will attack us as well. After his defeat, it's revealed that he was merely a puppet of Ganon, who makes his escape to the Great Pyramid with Link giving chase. Oh, wait a minute, the bird can go to the Dark World! The motherfucker probably wasn't getting paid enough until last minute or something. Within the Great Pyramid, we confront Ganon, who will throw his trident around and send fire bats after us. But after enough hits, he'll make the room go dark and start teleporting around, with us needing to restore light to the room in order to attack him. And with enough hits, Ganon is reduced to nothing but dust. With Ganon out of the picture, a pathway opens leading us to the Triforce, which will grant any wish we want, and so Link takes a hold of it as the Triforce works its magic. Afterwards, we see the results of Link's wish. The king is brought back to life, the priest is safe as well, our uncle is safe and sound, and any evil influence of Ganon is erased, returning Hyrule to a state of peace once again. With Link placing the Master Sword back in its pedestal in the Lost Woods, we can end A Link to the Past. The sheer amount of improvements this game brought to the series cannot be described in words, and not properly at least. Link's finer controls, the sense of exploration combined with things not feeling as cryptic like they did in the first 2 games, and the scale of everything makes this feel like a true masterpiece of game design. As I stated in the beginning of this video, the influence this game had on the Zelda series was immense. The formula of 2 overworlds being linked together through some gimmick, as well as the dungeon structure, would be carried into nearly every future Zelda game. It's no wonder why A Link to the Past is often regarded as one of the best games ever made, because simply, it is. After this game was finished, a small team at Nintendo wanted to make a Zelda game for the Game Boy, and thus they went behind the backs of their superiors and began to develop one. So I hope you'll come back next time for when we discuss Link's Awakening, both the Game Boy original and the Switch remake. Subscribe to the channel if that sounds interesting to you, and leave a like, comment, and share the channel should you choose. With all of that said, have a great day or night. Peace.